All right, man. John, appreciate you coming in, doing a little podcast here. So with At Ease Inspections, right?
That's right. Yeah,
right.
happy to be here today. And
Yeah, great to have you.
See what we get into, but I'm sure it'll be a good time.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about how you got into home inspections.
Yeah, so I come from a whole family full of contractors.
Okay.
I'm actually the oldest of 10 kids. I've got 7 brothers in the area.
Oh, wow.
And we all own businesses and do contracting of various sorts. So plumbing, general contracting, painting, just everything you think of.
Wow.
And so kind of grew up around some of the trades. And then about 11 years ago, I had a mentor that had been doing it, home inspection since the 90s when they first kind of became a thing. And he kept saying, you should look at this. It might be a good fit for you. And I woke up one morning about 11 years ago and I said, you know what? I'm going to give that a try. And so went and started doing some studying and got a little business going up and going, and it's kind of grown from there.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you've been doing it at 11 years.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. So, and you have a whole family full of contractors. So you grew up here?
We grew up in Dahlonega, actually,
Okay.
up on a big old farm up there in the foothills of the mountains up there. And so we tried farming for a while and then realized you're not going to probably ever be able to retire or really make any money at all farming. Farming's a great hobby. It's not a good way to pay the bills.
It's not anymore.
No. So we eventually transitioned out of farming and all got into various trades, and that's kind of where it went.
Wow,
so,
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
And if you go back a couple generations, they were all farmers. So my
Right.
family is
Yep.
full of farmers. Up until he passed away last year, my uncle still was a farmer.
Really?
Actually,
Wow.
yeah. Two of my 4 uncles were all farmers.
Excellent. What type of farming were they doing?
Oh gosh, they did. Well, my uncle that passed away that I was just talking about had an asparagus farm. He was a
Wow.
3rd generation.
Okay. You don't hear about much of that down here, but
No.
I see it up in Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big, huge asparagus farm in Michigan, and people used to come from all over the place to come over and buy asparagus. They used to sell it right out off the farm.
That's great.
And then of course they would go to market with it.
Sure.
But it was more. It ended up being kind of a side hustle for him.
All right.
He'd probably take offense to that word, but he was an iron worker by trade. That's what he had to do to make a living
Yes.
and raise a family. But he grew up a farmer,
Okay.
and he never gave it up. And I remember him telling me, he goes, some guys play golf, some people play tennis, some people do go out on the boat. He goes, I love to farm.
That's right.
So that was his deal.
You kind of grow up with it. It gets in your blood, and I'm living around this area right now, but one day I'll have a little farm again.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. So
Yeah. You got to go buy some acreage, or do you got it already set up?
No. Still keep my eyes open. What I don't want to do is time it wrong, right? Like as things continue to grow and get developed,
Yeah.
I don't want to buy somewhere, think I'm way out, away from everything.
Yeah.
And then by the time I actually build there, it ends up not being so far out. So
Yeah.
well, it'll happen though.
Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, getting back to home inspections.
Sure.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing right now as it relates to home inspections?
Yeah, and the market today, what we're seeing is that buyers really want move-in ready.
Okay.
And so we sometimes go out for buyers or for their agent after the fact. We've done an inspection, they've gotten an inspection report, and then they negotiate with the seller, right? I want you guys to repair this and this and this, that amendment to address concerns. And so we're doing a lot of re-inspections now, record number. Used to be every now and then we'd have someone say, hey, go back out and see if they actually fixed the stuff they said they were going to fix.
Okay.
And now we're doing a lot of those, which
All
is just going to show that the buyers really want move-in ready. And they don't want to be moving in and have a list of stuff they still need to fix on a house. And so that's definitely a trend. I would say the challenge comes in there if you're not really careful on what you're asking for and how you're asking for it to be fixed. That can lead to misaligned expectations. And so you have a seller thinks they did what they were supposed to, and the buyer's like, no, it's not at all what we asked you to do. And then the agents get involved there and have to sort it out. But that's where some of the challenges are coming up right now, for sure.
Yeah.
The other challenge would be we are seeing just in the last year or two, I would say, significant increase in the number of folks that move into a home and they maybe weren't mentally prepared for just home ownership. And so They find a few little things and then they want us to come fix them all for them. And I'm like, nah, that's not really what a home inspection's for. Okay. We're there to catch the big stuff, and that loose doorknob or whatever, like that's, you can just get a screwdriver out and tighten it up. It's all right.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's interesting. So tell me about this major and minor improvements or repairs, because that's something as an agent we run into all the time.
Yes.
You know, and so we're always constantly talking to our clients about what is a major and a minor. So what would you consider like a major issue and a minor issue?
Right. So your major issues are typically going to involve the major systems of the house or the foundation, right? A major system would be like the HVAC needs to be replaced. Maybe the roof as a system needs to be replaced, right? You don't think of a roof as a system, but it is. And so these are significant items. They're going to be starting in that $5,000 range, going on up to $20,000, maybe for a new roof on some houses these days. The minor stuff is some rotted trim.
Yep.
A loose railing on a deck that can be secured with a few more bolts, right? Those are not major issues. Sometimes an inspector might write them up as safety. A loose railing could be a safety issue, but just because it's a red item in the report or it's labeled as a safety issue, it's not something that you'd be too worried about in terms of negotiating or walking away on a deal. It's just make sure you get it fixed, and everyone in the house will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you consult obviously with your clients, and they're able to reach out to you and talk to you about the report, right?
Oh, yes.
And get clarification on it.
So
sometimes you read the reports
and it seems like the house is going to fall down.
Oh yeah. And I always prep everybody. I'm like, listen, you're going to get this big old thick report and it's going to scare you to death.
That's right.
Just take a step back and we'll go through it line by line and we'll figure out what's really going on. But
there was a great parody of that I saw at Halloween. One of the agents I know dressed up as a home inspector, and he was carrying around this document, and it said, the soul crushing inspection report. So I said, yeah, I get that. So just to address real quick, we'll get to talking with clients and discussing things with them, because we believe that communication is the most important thing in a real estate transaction. So we'll get to that in a second. But the reason why some of those reports seem maybe more alarming than they really perhaps should be is because of the liability. And so most folks don't realize it, but we take on a tremendous amount of liability every single day. We'll do maybe 4,000 home inspections this year. Well, each day of the week, I'm taking on tens of millions of dollars of liability.
Wow.
And so we have people that they move in. There was hidden defects that could not be discovered perhaps during a home inspection. And what do? They turn around, sue us, take us to court. Usually always gets thrown out eventually, but we spend a lot of time and money just fighting to prove that we didn't do anything wrong. So if you deal with that a couple times, you try to cover yourself with the language, and then it kind of feels like, well, they're overdoing it a little bit. Well, kind of, but we're also trying to protect and make sure that we're really clear on the front end what we can and can't do, what could happen, worst case scenario. And sometimes the worst case scenarios do come true. I have a number of friends in the inspection industry who do expert witnessing. Okay. And so they get pulled into lawsuits as expert witnesses. And so you think, all right, a loose handrail is not that big a deal. Well, it isn't until the occupant moves in, has a few drinks, falls through the rail, breaks their neck, and dies. Yeah. That's a absolute worst case scenario. But I'm aware of a lawsuit in the last couple of years that happened for that very thing. So we have to just try to protect everyone, and that's our goal. But when it comes to communication, the best thing you can do is show up at the inspection. Really. We have a lot of agents, a lot of buyers maybe who we don't see as many of them showing up at inspections these days. But if they can come by toward the ends of an inspection, walk through the house with the inspector, if they've had some time to kind of just look around, see what's going on. We find that really helps to align expectations and put everyone on the same page, and helps keep deals from falling apart too. So
so I know the inspections can last quite a long time, depending on the house.
Some of them do take longer than others, for sure.
So do you prefer it when somebody's there the whole time, or is it best to like, hey, give us 15 minutes on the tail end of this, and we'll be more than happy to go through everything with you?
Yeah, if you're buying a house, your best bet is to connect with your home inspector and ask them about what time do you think you're going to be done, and what time should I show up for the recap when we walk through the house together. You could be there the whole time, but I'm going to tell you, if you try to talk about the Braves and ask them questions about every little thing on the house, they're not going to give you a good inspection. They're just going to be distracted. They will miss stuff, and you'll find it after you move in. You won't be happy. So if you want the absolute best inspection, give them some time to focus. Try and get your agent there maybe with you toward the end. You guys all walk through together. Everyone gets on the same page. You're good to go.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. Let them do their work.
That's right.
Get out of their way. You've got a process that you're following, right?
A very
and you
specific process to be followed on every single house.
That's
and
right.
When we minimize the distraction and stick with that process, produces great inspections.
Yeah, perfect.
So,
Perfect. Yeah. Talking about your liability and some of these things, what about certification? What do you guys go through in order to be an inspector?
Sure.
And I know every state's a little bit different, but let's talk about
Every state
Georgia.
is different, but here in Georgia,
Yep.
I ask folks all the time, what does it take to become a home inspector? And the reality is you can print up a business card and anybody can be an inspector tomorrow. There is no licensing requirements at all. We're the only state around us that doesn't have license requirement. Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, all the rest of them do. So it's really important to start looking for certifications. Well, you say, all right, I'm going to get a certified inspector. I'll be good to go. Well, not so fast. There are some certifications you can get by clicking on an ad on Facebook and paying maybe $100, and within a day or two, you're a certified inspector.
Oh, that's pretty scary.
So that's not really worth a whole lot, right? So there's other certifications though that require a lot of work, maybe similar to becoming a real estate agent. You're studying, taking hours of classes. You have to pass an exam that's pretty rigorous. You got to do some more studying after you pass that test. And so if you're looking for like an ASHI certification, American Society of Home Inspectors, that's a great one. If you can find a code certified inspector, that's another great one. They've passed some pretty stringent tests, and generally they know what they're doing.
All right, so you just got to reach out to the inspector and say, hey, what certifications do you have?
Sure.
Send them to me and make sure that they're viable. And if you're working with an agent, hopefully they're referring you. They've already done a lot of that legwork for you, correct?
Right. Yes. Yes. We would hope that. Some agents maybe are a little more experienced than others. Those have been around for a while. We do tend to see that they know kind of what to look for and have kind of vetted the inspectors they're working with. The other people that are really good about that are the builders. The builders, if you're looking at new construction in Georgia, most of them have gotten very strict on who they're going to allow on their job sites to do inspections. And they've definitely figured it out. So they're very specific in the contract saying you can only have an inspector if they meet these requirements, certain types of insurance, certain certifications. And they've definitely figured it out.
Well, and we've got a great case study together on that because, we reached out to you to do a home inspection on a new construction. A client of ours is buying. Right. And you said, yeah, we do those all day long. So I got you in touch with the builder and I'm on the emails and I'm like, holy smokes. They're like, we need this. They give you a whole list of things. I'm like, wow, these guys are not playing around. I didn't know if that was a deterrent.
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 Yeah.
Thank you. A deterrent or not.
Well, the builders have been accused of that, right? And I've got family in building, right? Okay. So I get both sides of it. But I actually think it's a good thing. If you ask any home inspector in Georgia, hey, will you do new construction? They all say yes. But the reality is only about 12% of the home inspectors in Georgia actually are code certified, which means they know the building codes.
That's what I was going to ask you.
They can cite the building codes and they can give you as the buyer and the buyer's agent leverage to get things fixed. If they can't cite the building codes and know where they're found, you're really wasting your time and money. It's just an opinion. Yeah. And I've seen builders take the inspection report in front of everyone, throw it in the trash and say, you just wasted $500 because there's no building codes in here. So I think that their stringent requirements are actually a good thing. It's they're weeding out the folks really who are unqualified to do new construction. And they've been pretty aggressive on that, but I think that's good for the industry.
Now that's interesting because the codes change county to county, correct?
So yes, to some degree. There's a misconception though. A lot of times we do work with builders maybe who are a little bit farther out, and we commonly get, well, that's not code around here.
Correct. I hear that all the time.
And since 1991, actually, we've had something that we adopted here in Georgia called the Uniform Code Act. And it said that the code is the same in every county throughout all of Georgia, whether or not the local municipality enforces it. So you may or may not even have a building department in some of the rural counties. Some of the building departments in the rural counties don't really do a lot of enforcement, but it's still the law to build to the code in Georgia everywhere in Georgia. Okay. Now the counties or the cities, they can add to the code. They can make it more strict, But the basic code, you can't take anything away from it. And sometimes we get a lot of misconceptions on that. So
wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I guess that's one of the things that we always run into is everybody's worried about the counties always being a little bit different. So as far as their codes,
well, unfortunately, whether or not they choose to enforce it, do their job, it's still the law that the builder has to obey.
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So one of the other issues that comes up quite a bit, I know just from my experience, are decks.
Yes.
So can I talk about decks real quick? And maybe specifically when you have an older home, let's say it's 15, 20 years old, obviously codes have changed.
Yes, they have.
So it's very common for us to take a look at a home inspection and say, well, the lag bolts aren't code and it doesn't have any flashing and it's all this good stuff and it freaks everybody out.
Yes, it does.
So talk to me a little bit about decks. Why is that such a red flag, number one? And number two, what do you do with some of these issues that aren't code today, but they were years ago?
Yeah, so we could go down this rabbit hole quite a while. I actually teach a number of classes on the deck code, both to the Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association. So I'm teaching the builders how to build to code. And then also for inspectors who are code certified throughout the state, we do multiple deck classes for them as well. So you can spend a lot of time talking about the deck code and what has been in Georgia, what is current. But really, a good inspector, if it's on a resale home, we're not talking new construction, right? Because new construction needs to meet today's codes.
Correct, yeah.
Whether or not the local county enforces it doesn't really matter. It still needs to meet the basic minimum. But on a resale home, basically what you're looking for is two things. Can we guarantee it's going to be structurally stable? Not is it failing today, but can it still be structurally stable if they had a party next week?
Okay.
They move in, they invite their friends over, you put 20 people on this deck. Is it still going to be safe in that event? And then, so structure and safety is really what we're looking for. And then there are some things you talk about like missing flashing, right? These can sneak up on folks because you could notice there's no flashing where the deck meets the house. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look bad just stand there looking at it from the outside. But you could also maybe pull some drywall on the inside and find that the entire wall's been rotted out, which we had a $300,000 claim over that recently.
Wow. Okay.
And thankfully, our inspector had written up the flashing was missing. And we even had used infrared cameras to show that there was water inside the wall. And so we had thoroughly documented it. But they had a repair bill of $300,000 on that house, and they were looking for someone to pin it on.
Yeah.
So it didn't look bad from the outside, but sometimes those things really can cause more issues than you might expect just initially. So that being said, most of the things that are written up can be fixed quickly and easily, right? Mm-hmm. We say, a ton of damage inside a wall and all this. That is the exception. That's not normal what we see every day. That'd be maybe a 1 in 1,000. So, a lot of times you can get the decks fixed without too much house.
Okay,
so,
good, good. And then you guys always bring in or recommend maybe bringing in additional inspectors or sometimes if it's beyond the scope of what you're doing, correct?
Yeah, so there's a couple of common areas where you might have components on the house that would be difficult for your average home inspector to fully evaluate. Mm. Those examples would be septic systems. The only way to really inspect a septic system is you have to dig a hole in the yard, find the lid, and pull the lid on the tank.
Correct.
I had family members that installed them for a couple of decades. But if you hear about other methods of inspecting a septic system that don't involve digging a hole and yanking the lid open, it's probably not actually going to tell you what's going on. So that'd be one. Stucco is another one. If you're buying a home that's stucco, you might want to have a stucco specialist come out, and they do a little bit more thorough inspection of stucco by actually drilling small holes in the stucco and probing for moisture inside the walls. Once again, you could have a stucco house that looks great, but there could be a lot of damage in the walls that's not visible. They can look for that. So that'd be a good example too. Sometimes, depending on what type of roof it is, you might have a specialty roof. We've inspected some large estate properties that had a slate roof, and just the roof was $300,000 to $1,000 on these houses.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So very expensive component. And when you get to that price point, we have qualified inspectors to look at it, but just for liability, we might bring in a specialist on our own too, just to back us up. So, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we do the structural engineer. That comes up quite a bit with foundations if there's any kind of issues.
We have a structural engineer on our team, actually. So we my inspectors typically are trying to document issues during the inspection so that he might be able to just take a look at them if there's further evaluation needed, do a desktop review.
Yeah.
But yeah, structural engineer definitely be another one. You'll see a lot of inspection reports with that phrase.
Yeah.
Further evaluation by a structural engineer. So,
there you go, man. Yeah, we get that all the time.
Yep. It's very
So what
common.
about technology? Everybody's got, we got new technology flowing into just about every aspect of our life.
That's right. That's right.
So what are you guys seeing on your side as far as technology and how's that impacting your world?
So what you don't want if you're hiring a home inspector is a guy or a gal that shows up with just a screwdriver and a flashlight and a clipboard. That's what you used back in the 90s, and that was pretty common. That's about all you needed. If that's happening today, you need to find a different inspector because we have a lot of technology that's available that can really tell you a lot about the house. And there's no reason for us not to be using it. Some of it does cost a little bit of money, so it's an investment. But man, we can provide a great inspection using it. So a couple examples would be, I mentioned the infrared cameras earlier.
Yes.
So these are thermal imaging cameras. They're picking up temperature differentials, and they can detect maybe moisture that's in the drywall. As the moisture begins to evaporate, it changes the temperature. So we might find hidden leaks, find missing insulation, find electrical issues. If you have a wire inside a wall or electric panel that's overheating, it can catch that, even though you might not be able to see it. So we find a lot with those thermal cameras that's just
they
great.
are pretty cool. I mean, you guys send me these reports and have all the pictures in there, and they're just like so neat.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe they can do that. They
That's
go right behind the wall and
you can
find out all these little hot spots,
That's
right?
right.
It's like, wow,
find a lot of hidden things
cool.
with those. So that's one good example. Another one might be we have sewer cameras we're using a lot now on homes. And so most folks might not know, but when you buy a house, and if that house is on sewer, you own that sewer line that goes from the house all the way out to the street. Sometimes that's a distance, and it might be trees in the front yard. Might have just been installed a long time ago and it's sunk down over time. But what you don't want is to move into your house and have a sewage backup in the first month or two. That is a miserable experience for everybody.
Yeah,
and
I
so
bet.
we have cameras we can put down through the sewer line, run it out through the yard to the street, check and make sure that those are not blocked or broken or full of tree roots, any of that. So we're using those a lot now today. And then we also have a couple of gadgets just to check for like environmental hazards in the house, whether it's radon or mold or carbon monoxide. We have specific devices for each of those that we can use to check what you're breathing in the home. Yeah. And that seems to be a concern of a lot of folks on this side of COVID. What am I going to be breathing when I move into this house?
Yeah, talk to me about radon, because I know there's like little pockets, like some areas, maybe a little bit further north, like Talking Rock and so on. I don't know. I don't know where this radon comes from in some part of the soil, but some areas seem to have a higher rating than other areas. Right. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what it seems like to me.
Sure. No, that's definitely accurate. So when it comes to radon, most folks don't even know what it is, but it's an invisible cancer-causing gas that comes up from granite in the ground. So we do have quite a bit of granite around North Georgia in the metro area. If you're thinking about metro Atlanta, we have two big pieces called Stone Mountain and Kennesaw Mountain on either side of the city. And then certainly as you go north, you get into the foothills, there's a lot of granite. Highway 20 that runs from Cumming over to Carsville runs along a ridge, and we see a lot of it there. And then you get up into the foothills. You mentioned Talking Rock, Jasper, LJ, Blue Ridge, a lot of it up there because of the mountains.
Yeah.
So the good thing is, even though it's not something you want to be breathing in a home, it's easy to test for, and it's pretty easy to fix if you find it in a home. Folks sometimes get alarmed when we do a test and we find there's elevated radon in a home. But my advice has always been that's never a good reason to walk away from a house. You can easily get it fixed. You have a system put in that sucks it out from underneath the house, spits it out the side or out the roof, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So not that hard.
We've seen quite a few of those installed in a lot of the houses, and they're really not that intrusive. No. They're just kind of sitting there. So
and it's a nice feature for the home too. Once you have one of those installed, if it's a basement, it can help control the humidity in that basement too. And you don't have to worry about radon once that's installed. So it's a great feature.
Yeah, we had one in Lake Arrowhead not too long ago that we just sold. And I was representing the seller, but the buyers came through and we were walking through the house with them and they were asking, what is this? So I explained it to them and I'm like, listen, you're going to be happy you have this. And they thought it was great. you know, and I was like, listen, you're not going to have any issues down here whatsoever because of the humidity, the lack of thereof. And then of course you've got your radon issue. So anyways,
it's a great feature.
It was kind of cool. Let me talk a little bit about, go back to the new construction.
Yes.
Because usually a lot of times when we work with clients and we're doing new construction, they want to bypass the home inspection because it's a brand new house.
Why would you need it inspected?
There's nothing wrong. It's getting back to that whole, there's nothing wrong with this house. It's brand new. And they're thinking like, loose fixtures here and a little scratch there. And I'm like, no, we're talking about building codes. We want to make sure your house is built to code. But, talk to me a little bit. Should we do a home inspection on brand new construction?
Sure.
Pros and cons?
Yeah. So let me tell you a story real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think, especially if it's a higher end custom build, there would be no need to have an inspection done. We did a house 2 months ago down near the perimeter of Atlanta. This was a very nice home, a $3.8 million, 6,000 square foot home, custom builder. When we got there for a final inspection, they were supposed to close in a couple weeks. We found 58 code violations on this home.
Wow. Okay.
So the county had already supposedly been inspecting it as it's being built. And the most notable code violations we found were things like the patios were all poured sloping back toward the house. So there was water already coming through the walls in the basement.
Oh, wow.
The 5 showers upstairs, very big home, all leaked through the ceiling into the dining room, kitchen, and living room the second we turned them on because all the shower pans had been installed wrong. I mean, just a comedy of errors on a very high-end, very nice-looking home.
Wow.
And you would think that's the last one in the world we should need an inspection on.
Yeah.
But we find that frequently. And so the assumption that the builder's going to catch everything and have it built right first is faulty. As I said, my family's in building. I have brothers are general contractors. But a builder can't sit there and babysit the subcontractors all the time. They have other things they have to be doing other than sitting there and watching them. And so things can get by. And in the second assumption that the county's going to actually catch stuff, I wouldn't rely on that.
Yeah.
Code enforcement varies widely depending on the county or city. Some counties or cities don't even have a building department in Georgia. And then some of them have outsourced it to third parties too. They can't even staff their own building department. So they've just hired third-party contractors to do the inspections, and the quality can vary greatly.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And you're being in the building world. What I found was they have these contractors, and they have their subs, but they may not be all that familiar with the subs.
Yes.
They may be a brand new sub that they just brought in. And as a homeowner, I don't know that. No. I'm contracting with my builder, who's a GC. I'm assuming he's got a long-lasting relationship with all these people, or maybe they're even employees of his.
That's right.
I'm not understanding how that whole world works.
Right. Right.
So, and it's not a fault of the builders. The builders, they got to do what they have to do. But you're right; they can't keep their eye on every single crew and every single subcontractor that's working on the home sometimes.
Sure.
Right.
And that really is the number one thing that determines quality on a home, whether it's a custom build or whether you're buying from one of the larger production builders like a D.R. Horton or a Pulte. The number one thing that controls the quality of the build is just who is watching the subs and what type of relationship do they have in place with them. And that you can have a great product sometimes put out by a large production builder. Sometimes you have a great product put out by a custom builder, but both of those can have a lot of issues too. Yeah. If the superintendent isn't that experienced or doesn't really watch their subs or know them that well.
Yeah. So, that's pretty cool. All right. So what's your favorite part of the job? I mean, you're very passionate about it. I mean, I'm impressed, man. I'm like, wow, this is great.
No.
I'm glad I met you and connected with you. So you're very knowledgeable, but what's your favorite part of this?
Yeah, I think my biggest passion, and I think it's been adopted by everyone on our team, is we just love to help educate home buyers, right? And so if we can help educate them, help them make sure they're going to buy a house that's not going to hurt them or their family. Because sometimes we forget that home inspections aren't just about price negotiations. They are also about life safety too, right? So keeping them safe, protecting them and their family, and also protecting their wallet.
Yeah.
We've all seen the movie with Tom Hanks, The Money Pit, right? And nobody wants that. And so if we can protect them in both those ways through educating them and being a trusted guide for them, that makes us feel pretty good at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome. What's your advice to first-time home buyers?
Yeah. So first time home buyers, couple of things. One, definitely vet the inspector. You need someone who's going to be experienced and take the time to walk through with you. Show up toward the end of the inspection so you can be there and see things firsthand. And then just know that inspection report, on average, is going to be around 50 pages long. So just expect that. Don't be alarmed by that. Just expect it ahead of time. That's about the average nationwide for an inspection report. And so you're paying them to find everything they possibly can wrong. And there'll be some things that might not be visible on the day of the inspection, but they're going to do their best to try and find everything they can. So don't be alarmed if the report's a little bit long.
Yeah. Cool. And what about sellers? What's your advice with sellers?
Yes. So sellers, we have a couple of resources on our website that we made for buyers, for sellers, how to have a smooth inspection on either side of the deal. And so some of the things we tell the sellers are, number one, make sure things are accessible for the inspector. If they can't get to the water heater because you got boxes stacked floor to ceiling all around it, or the electric panel, those sorts of things, they're not going to be able to finish the inspection. They're going to have to come back another day. It's just going to be a headache for everybody. Attic accesses, if you got one of those in the garage and there's a vehicle parked underneath it, take the vehicle out before you go to work, right? So we can get in the attic, those sorts of things. Second would be, if you got any pets in the house, go ahead and crate them up. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the front door and they say, oh, she's friendly. And I walk in and immediately get bit by the dog. Yeah. It's like, well, it was friendly. So that's another one. And then finally, if you got anybody else in the house, make sure they know we're coming. I can't tell you how many times we've shown up and there's a teenager or a mother-in-law or somebody asleep in the basement and nobody told them the inspection was happening that day, and everyone else went to work. And that's a little awkward. So make sure everyone knows we're coming.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we could sit here and tell stories about our real estate experiences, about walking in on some things. I've heard just about all of them.
We call ahead, we knock, we yell, we do everything we can. And sometimes there's still surprises.
That there is. So yeah, when we consult with folks, we're really heavy on the listing side, but I always talk to people about, we have a process that we go through as far as repairs are concerned. And we look at things that are broken, like if an inspection comes back and it was busted, it was broken, and we weren't aware of it, we didn't disclose that, we're going to fix it, right? Or we're going to negotiate some kind of compensation for that. And then other things could be worn beyond what they typically should be. Sure. So you've got an HVAC system that may be 8 years old, but an inspector says, this thing's trash. I mean, it's done. Or a roof is a good example of that. Yeah. We have a lot of roofs here lately. So if it's worn beyond the normal wear and tear for its age, then we negotiate some kind of compensation for that. And then all the cosmetic things are just exactly that. We're not going to touch them.
That's good.
So I just wanted to get your input on, does that make sense as far as working with sellers and buyers and that expectation in your mind?
Yes, it's really important, I think, right now to set expectations for the buyers. Because as I said, they want move-in ready. And move-in ready means different things to different people. Yeah. And we have been seeing more amendment to address concerns that have a lot of the cosmetic issues in there. And traditionally, that hasn't been the way the game is played, right? There's kind of been a mutual understanding, I think, to some degree, between experienced agents that, hey, we're going to focus on bigger items and amendment to address concerns, the systems that are no longer working or maybe past their service life. But we have been seeing more of the cosmetic stuff coming up lately. And I think it's just people not wanting to deal with stuff when they move in. So maybe setting that expectation, and if you're working with the buyers, but also I think when we think about the systems that are going to be toward the end of their life, you said roofs. We're running into a lot of issues with that because of the insurance companies right now. Correct. And so setting expectations with your sellers on that, yes, the roof might be perfectly fine, but there's a lot of carriers right now who will not insure a roof if it's over 10 years old. Yes, we're running into that every day. The lifespan on that roof might be 20 years. It's only 12 years old. It should have another 8 years of good service life. But they say, no, we're not writing a policy because it's over 10 years. Yeah, we're running into that. That's been an issue. Yes. And it has to happen probably on the state level because, from a seller standpoint, they're saying, I have a 10-year-old roof. I am not buying a new roof. No. So it's an issue, but we're running into a lot of that right now. So just setting expectations around those things. If you're doing the listings too, there's some carriers who are flagging roofs just because they have a little bit of that discoloration on them. And that discoloration is usually just a little bit of algae growing on usually the north side of the roof, and you can get someone to soft wash the roof pretty cheaply. Keyword is soft there. Don't let them pressure wash it. That will ruin your roof. But
please don't do it on your own.
Right.
Please do not get up there and blow all the granulars off the roof.
But if you can get the roof to where that staining isn't there, because a lot of times the carriers are just looking at it with a satellite or a drone.
Okay.
And if they see that it just looks good without that staining, they might still approve it. So.
Yeah. That whole roof thing has been interesting. It really has. And some
of
of that
drama.
Some of those issues that you're running into, like cosmetics coming up on this amendment to address concerns, that could be just the nature of the market too, shifting. It's shifting a little bit more towards a buyer's market, and so they have a little more negotiating and leverage. So
they
could be
certainly
a little
want
bit
to
of
think
that.
so.
Yeah,
sure.
they do.
They do.
I mean, it's really it
Days
is,
on
but-
market's gone up a little bit. We've seen a few price reductions, right? So
Yeah, but we
it's
were
a
just
bit better.
talking this week. It's just like all of a sudden kicked in again.
Yeah.
I mean, our phones are ringing, and you were mentioning yours are too.
We a lot of buyers. We work with just agents all over North Georgia, and a lot of the agents were saying, "Hey, I have buyers lined up ready to go, but they just want to wait till after the election." And we've seen this going back to previous election cycles. It really doesn't even hardly matter who wins. It's just the lack of being sure about what's going to happen once the election, right? And you get past it, and every time, doesn't matter who wins, it takes off again.
Yeah, it's a psychological
warfare
really that we go in.
It really is. So we saw that very quickly this time around, though. It was like literally within 2 days of the election, the phones started ringing like crazy.
So outside of this and outside of farming, outside of doing home inspections and doing a little bit of farming on the side, I mean, what else do you guys do? What do you do for fun?
Sure. So I have 4 kids. They're a little bit older now, but usually one of them might be dragging me up to do a little pickleball or something like that.
All right.
I got one that's really into that right now. So
how old is
he's 15 right now. So he's that's kind of his new hobby. So he can't drive himself up there. So I'm usually going up and playing with him. So we do a lot of that.
Where do you go?
Over to Dupree usually.
Okay.
There's some public courts over there that are pretty nice. And there's a great little community there too, where you just kind of get in the round robin. You just kind of put your pad up there and you're playing with people, meeting new people, and it's social, and it's great.
It's someone said that it's pickleball's like the new CrossFit.
Yeah, it's
great. It's so true.
Yeah.
So my daughter is totally invested
into
pickleball. She's 20. How old is Jane? She's going to kill me when she sees this. 27.
Okay.
And she's got this group of people, and she's met all these new people, and they like hang out together. They're doing tournaments. They'll go up to Chattanooga and do these tournaments. But she goes over to Dupree.
Yeah, it's a great little community over there. So we play a lot over there.
Oh, that's cool.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's amazing how that whole sport has taken off.
It really has. I keep saying somebody builds an indoor pickleball in Woodstock, they're going to make a killing on it. Because in the middle of the summer, if you could go in and play in the AC, I would sign up for that. So,
well, I think I've heard a couple people rumblings around some facilities maybe thinking about that or converting some space into that.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of people that are trying to get some plans in place, but we'll see what materializes.
I think everybody's worried that how long is this going to last, right?
It can't be a fad, and then you're stuck with a building and land and all that.
There you go.
So.
There you go. So
exactly. Yeah. So we do a little bit of that. Coming up here in a week or two, we'll be doing a little backpacking trip. I got 3 teenage boys right now, so we'll be going backpacking together.
Busy.
And so
you're busy.
It'll be great. So
oh, that's cool. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out, man. This was great.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Great conversation today. And like you said, I am passionate about inspections.
I can tell.
But also it just comes down to helping to keep people safe and also protecting their investment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Tom, tell me about how you got into the real estate industry.
Well, I kind of fell into it. So I was in corporate world back in 2001, and I had an architectural degree and did a little bit of construction with my family way back in the day.
Okay.
So I've always had an appreciation for building and construction and architecture, if you will. And in 2001, it was actually after 9/11.
Wow.
I was out of work, right? And I had an opportunity to basically reinvent myself. I was tired of being on the road. My prior career was traveling all the time.
Right.
And we had just moved down here to Atlanta. And we were here for about 7 months. And then after 9/11 happened, I mean, my wife and I can still remember we were sitting there and I didn't even know where the elementary school was. I had 3 babies at home. Didn't even know where the school was.
Wow.
couldn't tell you how to drive there. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm done with corporate. And so I wanted to find something that I could do locally, right?
Sure.
And so I had a buddy of mine who I was working with, and we were like, let's get into real estate. And we were flipping houses, and flipping wasn't even a word back in 2001, 2002. So we bought our first investment property. We did pretty good on it. Bought another one. Didn't do so good on it. And so we were
Can't win them all, right?
Yeah. I was like,
you gotta learn the numbers. Learn the numbers.
I think I better figure out the numbers on
That's
this. So I went and got my appraisal license.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And then that whole world just kind of blew up. So this is 2002, 2003, got into 2003, 2004. And all of a sudden the appraisal part of it just blew up. So we were flipping houses on one side and I had the appraisal firm on the other.
You had a lot going on. Wow.
So we had a lot going on. We were selling houses. So from 2003 till 2008, I mean, we were doing really well. We were hanging in there and cranking along.
Until 2008.
2008 hit. Exactly.
Oh, man.
That went through that whole thing.
So how did you make it through the downturn? Because every now and then I run into folks who have been in the industry that long, right? There's not a ton left from that time period. But I'm always curious because we've been enjoying a pretty good market for the last couple of years around Metro Atlanta, right? But it's not going to last forever, right? And there will be a downturn at some point.
Correct.
It's going to come at some point. So I'm always curious to hear what did you do during the downturn and how did you make it?
Well, I still have PTSD from that period.
That's fair.
So I don't know how well I fared through that. It was extremely challenging. I had a host of properties that I owned. Many of them were all of a sudden vacant, and I couldn't get consistent renters in them.
Right.
I was going through eviction process after eviction process. Full disclosure, I lost quite a few of them. I mean, I lost them. I had to give them back to the bank. In addition to that, I got a little bit over my skis at one point, and I also was doing lending on development.
Wow. Okay.
And
that didn't go so well during
it did not go so well because I was in second position, right? So we were doing the high interest rate, second loan on some commercial development.
Okay.
And these, the numbers were pretty big.
Sure.
And I wasn't the only one investing in it. I was in a group of investors. Those went collapsed.
Oh, yeah.
That money's gone.
All of them. All of them. Yep.
So the one nice thing about that was the appraisal business was doing pretty well because now all of a sudden the foreclosures were coming in and the bank-owned houses. So a lot of that work was coming in. It was different works because you were working for the banks.
Right.
And it was just hard work. You're going
a lot of work and not making a ton of money.
No, the money wasn't great. It was just enough to pay the bills. However, with all the bank failures and such, my appraisal firm was sued.
Really?
Because they were going after all the appraisers.
Wow.
So for 4 years, I was tied up in litigation with some appraisal jobs that we did. We're talking millions of dollars too.
Sounds like a blast.
Yes. So we made it through.
Right.
I mean, we made it through. We never had to file bankruptcy. We hung in there. But by the end of it, it was 2013 by the time we got through all that stuff.
Right.
We started over.
Yeah.
I mean, I financially started over in 2013.
You and a lot of other people.
And a lot of other people. I've learned, I went through this a lot with a lot of other people. I was not alone. A lot of people had it a lot worse off than we did. I was happy to be able to hang on to our house. And at this whole time, I'm in the same stage you are now. I mean, I had 3 teenagers.
Okay.
So my son was a senior in 2013. So he, and I had 2 younger ones underneath that. So we are at a high expense part of our life where
just add a little more pressure in there.
Oh my gosh, just trying to keep the kids in school and active and everything's going great, guys.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Prom dress, okay, we can do that.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So you're going through all of that. But anyways, by the time 2013 rolled around, I mean, we basically were starting over. So, but we pulled up our bootstraps and we jumped back in there. And like I said, I'm serious. I got a little PTSD. It's taken me a long time to kind of work through that and get through it. But we started investing again. Okay. So I have rental properties again. Now I'm doing it totally different than I did in the past.
Learned a few lessons.
A lot of lessons were learned. I put a lot more money aside. Yeah. So anyways, but I don't. Yeah, that's kind of the story, man.
Yeah, that's great. So I hear that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know it was not a fun time, but it sounds like you learned a lot of lessons. It sounds like you made it through because you're diversified in some of the different things you had going on. Right? If you had just been in development, that would have been tough.
Correct.
But you had a couple different things going on, so the diversification helped a little bit, and then just your resilience too to keep pushing through that time. But yeah, it wasn't an easy season.
No,
sure.
It wasn't.
So I think what you said there about just making sure we're not assuming that things are going to go the same way forever and putting away a little bit more money, saving a little bit more. That's probably a good move. Like we said, the bubble's not going to last forever, and we've had a pretty good run here in the real estate market for the last 10, 11 years. So it's good to be careful about just being wise with
it is. And although, we're in a totally different market than we were back in 2008. Yes. The financing that supports real estate's totally different than it was back then. However, once again, I got that little, I'm like, whoo.
That's right.
Woo-hoo. Yeah. Let's just
I don't anticipate any sort of crash that would be similar to 2008. But we know that what goes up has to come down at least a little bit at some point, right? And so we've been on the up quite a bit over the last decade. So
I'm very conservative when I take a look at the finances, any kind of an investment deal. I'm very conservative with it, and I don't make as many moves in that area like I did in the past.
Right.
Whereas before I was just like, just let's go. I can make it work. I'll figure it out. Now I'm like,
to the floor.
I'm like, nope, pass.
That's
pass. And some of them I've passed on some really good deals. And I'll go back and I'll be like, dang it, I should have done that one. Should have done it. But once again, so
I see that with a lot of spec houses being built again, and it makes me a little nervous when I see that because that's a lot of money sitting out there, assuming that a buyer's going to come along.
Correct.
And so far in Atlanta, it's been pretty good. It's paid off, but when you get a lot of money sitting out there, it makes me nervous seeing that.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the other things that I really I reflect back on as an appraiser, I should have known. I should have seen it. All the signs were there. So to kind of get into the weeds a little bit, as an appraiser, we use a couple different ways to evaluate properties, and one of them is the comparison approach, right? The sales comparison approach. You take 3 sales and make adjustments, and here's your value. The second one is the income approach, which is what is the value going to be of that property based on the income stream, right? And then the construction approach. If you were to build this new and then depreciate it, here's your value. If you do all 3 of those approaches, theoretically, all 3 values should line up pretty close to each other.
Okay.
All right.
That makes sense.
So you can do any of those 3 on a property, and if you do it right, they should all line up. Well, back in 2008, they were not lining up. Not at all. The sales comparison approach, the values were, back then it was $200,000. You did the income approach, that property was worth $80,000. There was a huge mismatch.
Right.
And I just ignored it because the market was just cranking along and I was just following everybody else, right?
Everybody's making money right and left. And we're just,
That's right. That's right. So that was my wake-up call. I was like, man, and I knew that was my world. That was, I'm supposed to be the expert at this. And when I saw those big mismatches, I was like, I didn't trust my own education.
Right.
And kind of ignored it. Now, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a little bit of that misalignment now. We talk a lot about investment properties.
Where are you seeing the misalignment?
Well, cost approach is going to be a much higher value than the income approach. So there's a mismatch there.
Exact same.
So I'm a little bit nervous with that. And that's been quite a few years.
Yeah.
And if you talk to a lot of the investors out there that buy properties or look at them, they're all saying, you're never going to find anything. And right now, the market, you're not going to find anything that cash flows for a good 3-4 years, right?
So I've been hearing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
I'm like, because there's a little mismatch here.
There is. Yeah. Okay.
Just
makes
be
sense.
Careful.
That's right. That's right.
Just be careful.
Oh, man. Right. So it's interesting how sometimes we ignore kind of that gut feeling, right? Like in your subconscious somewhere, like you knew that there was something not right there, but maybe just the adrenaline of just the speed and the all the money coming in from different, like everything's going great. And you're just like, and so we ignore sometimes. I wonder if that's maybe just because we get so busy and we don't slow down. But yeah, sometimes we can get ourselves in a little bit of trouble by not just ignoring that little still small voice inside. It's like, hey, what about this?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a little bit of fear missing out. You see all these other people that are doing it and they're quote unquote making money doing it. So you're like, I want a piece of that.
That's right.
Let's go. I can do this. So you kind of jump in and take a little bit more risk than what you really should be.
Right.
But
right. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you've been doing real estate now for 23 years. Wow.
Yep.
So that's quite a while. So today, talk to me a little bit about your approach to real estate now, right? So there's a bunch of realtors around this area, Cherokee County, right? Yeah. We work with a bunch of them, but tell me what sets you apart. What do you try to do different just to stand out in the market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It is hard to separate yourself. First of all, just my vast experience. I've lived here for now 24 years.
There's not a ton of people that can say they've been here that long.
I know. Isn't that weird?
There's a lot of people that have moved here in the last 20 years.
Isn't that crazy? So we've got 24 years experience living here. My kids grew up here. I raised them here. They all went to Woodstock High School. My wife is a teacher. She's been a teacher at Sixes Elementary for that length of time as well, just about, a little bit shorter than that.
She taught some of my kids up there.
Did she?
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew I liked you. But yeah, so she's been a teacher. So we're ingrained, we're invested here. I'm not trying to sell real estate in some community that I'm not familiar with, that I can't talk to people logically about. I roll in my experiences, my appraisal experience. I was a home inspector for a very short period of time back in the day as well. And just my life experiences. So I just really pour into people, and I love educating people and helping people.
Right.
Does that separate me from another agent? I don't know. There's a lot of really good agents here.
Yeah, there are.
It's trust. It's a trust thing.
Well, some of those skill sets you mentioned, like architecture, appraisals, the development side, like all that combined with 23 years of real estate experience, like that's some unique skill sets that you're bringing to the table there. That's great. A lot of value there.
Yeah. So we just kind of lay it out and say, I don't know if I'm the right person for you or not. Here's what we've done for other folks. Here's my experience. This is what I can do. And I would love to be able to help you out. So,
sure.
And we're not for everyone. I will tell you that over the years, we've gotten a little bit more selective of who we work with. I like working with result-oriented people. And there's a lot of folks that are out there that just, they may not be ready, or they're just kind of playing around. I don't like playing the games. I really don't,
Well, as a business owner, you're wasting your time by playing those games.
Correct.
Right? And so I think there's a lot of wisdom in knowing who is a good fit for you to work with that serves both them and you. Right. And so I think that's sometimes we just look and say, all right, clients are clients. I want any clients I can get. And the longer I'm in business, I recognize that is not a good way to do business. Yeah. Being able to determine who am I going to be a good fit for? Who can I serve best?
Yeah. And
also who's going to be the best to invest my time with, right? That's what makes a lot more sense. And I think the longer you're in business, the more you begin to realize that. Yeah. It took me a little while.
No, it does.
I really think that's a good approach that you've got there.
Yeah, it really does. So yeah, I'm always like trying to find someone's motivation, because that's obviously key. Yes. And if there is truly a strong motivation there and they're open to suggestions and they want results, I'm great. We're going to get along great, because I'm going to give you some wisdom and I'm going to give you some advice, and we're going to pull you through this whole process. But if you're just, no, I just want a sign in the front yard, put it on MLS and never call me again, I'm probably not the best fit.
Right.
That's not what I do.
Well, it's good. You're about getting it done, making stuff happen.
Yeah, so we'll get it done.
Sounds like
it's going to be a partnership.
That's good.
It's going to be a partnership. We're going to have to work through it together. And as long as you're open to that and we're going to get along great.
Sure. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little about your newsletter, because I got a copy of your newsletter a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
And I was super impressed by it. We get a lot of newsletters from different businesses, different real estate industry partners all over North Georgia, but yours really stood out. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, tell me what stood out about it.
So I love that it was really well designed. Some of them are obviously just cheap, maybe generic Canva templates or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But yours looked like a lot of thought had gone into the design. I don't know if that's due to your architecture background, the eye you got, or whatever. So it definitely stood out visually. Two, there was a lot of different resources in that newsletter. It wasn't just, hey, here's one topic that I'm not interested in, or here's just a couple of my listings coming up. But you had quite a few different resources about what's going on in the community and things like that kind of stood out to me. So it just seems like it was well thought out, well designed, and it caught my eye.
Wow, that's great. That's perfect. That's great input. Well, I tell you what we did. First of all, I did put the design together, so I appreciate that.
Way to go.
However, I reached out to some folks, our sphere and folks, and I'm like, all right, we all get a million of these newsletters. And there was something, I have a hard time just going out and showing everyone, look at all these houses I have. Look at me, look what I sold, look what I did. I think people are like burned out. I don't care. Right? So I went out to core advocates, if you will, and be like, all right, what do you guys want to see? I mean, what's really important? And it was all like, give me information that's good for me about the local area or what's happening. And so I kind of put that together and said, all right, I'm going to put a newsletter that, just shows it's a consolidated area or a newsletter that shows people what's going on, stuff that's important to them. So I have I kind of divided it up. There's school news, what's going on in the schools, all the news there, and then what's happening in Woodstock, what's happening in Cherokee. I'm probably going to expand that out to the other areas that we serve.
A couple other little cities in Cherokee.
But the ones that you had was a Cherokee County newsletter. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to figure out how to do that for the different counties and such.
Right.
So anyways, that's how I did it. And then I took off all the other crazy stuff that says, look at me, look how cool I am and successful I am.
Right.
I tore all that stuff out because I'm like, I don't think people care. I really don't.
Yeah. So there's three things I just heard you say that I think helped make it so great. One, you didn't make it about you. You made it about the person receiving it. Two, you sought out what would be valuable to them and got feedback on that. So I think that's excellent. And three, you kept it focused. Sometimes everything's so broad, it's just generic, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be helpful at all, right? Yeah. But those three things, I think, were real good components, and it made it stand out. So
cool.
Excellent job.
That's great, man. That's great input. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll continue to build on that and do that some more then.
Yeah,
so
excellent.
That's great.
I know you're with Keller Williams. Mm-hmm. You've been with them a while?
Yeah, I have been with them for 8 years.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think about 8 years now.
Excellent. Just as an agent, but maybe more particular to your clients, what value do you see as being part of the Keller Williams brand? What value does that bring to the folks that you're working with, listing their house, helping them find a house to buy?
Yeah, I would say there's quite a few things. Let me see if I can go through them. First of all is the education overall. So Keller Williams agents are the best trained and educated agents in the industry, hands down. I mean, we've won awards over that.
There's a joke that most agents go to Keller Williams to get trained, and then eventually might go somewhere else, but that's usually where they usually start because of the training is so
correct.
Good.
And
so,
that's true.
Yeah.
For a brand spanking new agent, hands down, we are the place you want to be because we're gonna teach you how to become the industry and how to build a successful business. The piece that I don't like is when they leave thinking they never have to have training again.
It's a mistake, yeah.
We are always learning. This industry changes. We're going through a changing market right now. Technology gets pumped in. So the fact that you think you can go and look at a doctor, right? Would you go a medical doctor gets his medical degree 5 years ago or 6 years ago and
you better
doesn't have any other training.
Continuing ed is very important. Doesn't matter the industry.
So that's right. So
we do it as inspectors too. So
yes, exactly. So that continuing ed is very important. But we also are building business people also, not just real estate agents. So the mindset at Keller Williams is, we're business people and we're building a business, right? This is not a hobby for us. Right. We're not doing it just to make a couple extra bucks. And everything that gets poured into being a business owner and taking care of clients is taught at Keller Williams. That's the big thing. One of the big things. The second thing is just our culture. We have a win-win or no deal kind of a culture. So we are not here to take advantage of people or situations. We have a culture of helping our local community and making sure everybody is happy within the transaction itself.
Yeah. And that's not just on the wall at y'all's office. I hear it spoken of on a regular basis in the sales meetings.
It's lived.
It's lived, yes.
Yes,
so that's great.
Absolutely.
So yeah, good. What else?
Just the size. I mean, we're the largest brokerage in the area in the Southeast. So why that's important is that we network with other agents. Some people think agents are like at odds with each other, and they compete with each other. Actually, the opposite is true. Our business comes from other agents. I have a listing, I have a house to sell. I'm selling it to other agents who are working with buyers. Those agents are critical to me.
Needs to be collaboration.
That collaboration is key. So we have the largest group of agents in collaboration than any other brokerage out there. So that doesn't mean we don't work with other brokerages, but the fact that we're all typical mindset, right? I know what a Keller Williams agent is, how they're going to act and how they're going to run their business. And just having that connection and collaboration with so many agents in the area is going to be really beneficial for the clients.
Oh, that's excellent. So, with our industry being home inspectors, I joke we have to kind of be like Switzerland, right? So we work with a bunch of different brokerages all over Atlanta and North Georgia. But I will say one of the things that I really like about Keller Williams is their focus on mindset. And so regularly when they offer CE classes on mindset, they do them so well. I will go and sit in on them just because I want to take that own benefit. First of all, to me personally, but then to my family, my business, my employees, and there's so much I've learned over the years from Keller Williams and some of the training they offer on mindset that's been invaluable. So I really appreciate that.
I would say that that's probably been the biggest surprise and the greatest value for me. And I was not expecting that walking into the Keller Williams office. Was not expecting it. But it has been huge. It's taken a little bit of time, but we've got to understand that your mind just will absorb whatever you expose it to and pour into it. It cannot filter through on its own, good from bad. It's going to take whatever you pour in there. You pour vinegar in and squeeze it, vinegar's coming out.
Yeah, 100%.
So you have to be really mindful of what you're pouring into your head. And so that exposure of like-minded people that understand that positivity and the affirmations and the go-to and the get it done and all of those positive things that you pour into your head, then you have nothing left but to pour out the same. So
that's excellent.
But the mindset stuff is for real.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is for real.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
well,
that's
good,
cool.
man.
All right.
This is great.
Thanks
for sharing a little bit more about your business.
Yeah,
it's
appreciate
great.
it.